But you know, in a major urban area, it could save people a lot of time. I mean,
Yeah. Oh,
New York has its helicopters a little bit, right? But this would be an extension of that.
Yep.
Yeah. When I worked in the city of El Cerrito, our city attorney worked in San Francisco. Her residence was down here in Morgan Hill, and all of her cities were El Cerrito and North. And so we would always ask her how her helicopter was, and she's like, I don't have one, I spend hours in the car.
Or you know.
Major backers are Stellantis, United Airlines,
Edith.
some big corporate.
Major win. Major win.
Archer.
Oh, yeah.
Nice job. Okay, I'm gonna call the meeting to order.
Sorry, I don't think we're ready yet.
Okay, let me hit record. I'm ready.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon. Evening, something. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Perfect, okay. Yeah. Ms. Jenna, call the meeting to order. All right, gonna call the meeting to order. Welcome to the July 14th Planning Commission. I know it's been a while. Hope everybody had a wonderful 4th. Can we do a roll call, Jenna?
Thank you, Chair Wilson. Chair Wilson,
Here.
Vice Chair Habib,
Here.
Commissioners Lake,
Here.
Mueller,
Here,
Lovato,
Here.
Downey,
Here.
and Adama.
Here.
Thank you. Can you declare the posting?
Tonight's meeting agenda was duly noticed and posted in accordance with Government Code Section 54954.2.
Thank you. We don't have a flag.
Let's in that direction.
You lead us, please.
Let us turn in the direction of the flag.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true. I pledge allegiance to the flag. States and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Public comment. Members of the public are entitled to address the planning commission on concerning any item within the Morgan Hill Planning Commission's subject matter jurisdiction. Public comments are limited to no more than 3 minutes. Except in certain specific exceptions, the commission is prohibited from discussing or taking action on any item not appearing on the posted agenda. I see we added some more additional information that's available at the back of the agenda. Orders of the day.
good.
Good.
So I just,
Okay,
if we can just, I'd like to also remind the audience how they can submit comment to us.
please do.
Thank you. If you're joining us today and want to provide public comment and you're using Zoom, you can use the raise hand feature. If you're calling in using your phone, you can dial *9 and then *6 to speak. You can also provide us public comment by email at pcpubliccomment@morganhill.ca.gov.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody in person or online that has any comments to any non-agenda items?
I don't see any raised hands.
Okay. No public hearings. Item 1, minute approval.
Motion approved.
I'll make a motion to approve the May 26th minutes.
Second.
Do a roll call.
Who was the motion?
Joe. Joe. I heard Joe.
Joe.
You know,
And then like what's the second term?
okay.
I'm gonna do a roll call.
Roll call.
Yeah,
Yes.
it has to be.
Chair Wilson,
Yes,
Vice Chair Habib,
Aye.
Commissioners Lake,
Yes.
Mueller,
Yes,
Lovato,
Yes.
Downey,
yes,
and Adama.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
thank you. Item number 2, the workshop for the greater downtown specific plan. Assuming Adam or Jennifer is giving a presentation.
So I'm Paskowski, plan manager for the city. I'll give a presentation. We don't have a formal presentation to share online or on the screen,
Okay.
but just have a verbal presentation about the project. And so over a year ago, the city council adopted a resolution accepting $1.15 million in grants funded from the TOC Plan and Implementation Grant. And this was through MTC, TOC's grant. And this was to fund 4 different areas. One is our Morgan Hill zoning densities and floor area ratio, housing, parking management, and then also a station access and circulation plan for Morgan Hill. And so through this grant, the MTC's TOC policy is what this grant is hoping to achieve. Through that policy, it requires us to address 4 areas. It's a housing supply and affordability. How do we increase the overall housing supply? In part by increasing densities or prioritizing affordable housing near transit areas. And so for us, it'll be the Caltrain station. Another aspect is commercial development. So areas near regional transit hubs, how do we increase the density and success of businesses or commercial developments near the transit center or transit hub? The third is the access and mobility. So it's really taking that multimodal look at transit. So it's walking, so pedestrian, bus, could be the train. It's more that active transportation. How do people travel outside from an automobile? So walking, the pedestrian aspect, bike, and then also using any public transit as well. And so with that part, it's taking a look at a half mile from our transit station to see theoretically how far can someone walk or bike to get to either the transit station or even our downtown. And then the fourth one is partnerships. So support and build partnerships to create equitable transit oriented communities. And so with that, it's doing our public outreach, really getting support and direction from the public and from our community members on the directions that we want to achieve as we go through this project. And so for the grant, what this is doing is going to be funding a update to our downtown specific plan. And so as part of this whole process, we're referring to it as the Greater Downtown Specific Plan. And that's going to be a comprehensive update to our 2009 Downtown Specific Plan. And the idea is to expand our boundaries for downtown, or at least what's included within the specific plan. And this will be expanding areas to the north and south of downtown, as well as to the west along Main Street, going over to Galvin Park, and then aligning any land uses, zoning, parking, any infrastructure, mobility, access, and the public realm. And so it's looking to incorporate all these policies or these TOC policies from MTC and incorporate it to a project that's viable for Morgan Hill. So it's taking a look at all these different aspects and seeing how do we want to grow within Morgan Hill, within our downtown, what changes do we want to make for all these different aspects, for these 4 different aspects. But one thing I want to point out is that on the housing part, we're addressing that separately from the downtown specific plan update. And we're taking that through a different approach and looking to update different ordinances, possibly adopt new ordinances that would be housing related in order to address those requirements. And the reason why we're doing this and why we applied for the grant is not only to help us update the downtown specific plan, but also looking at the future as part of OBAG funding, that's One Bay Area Grant Program, where we get several $1 million through funding for road improvements or pedestrian and crosswalk improvements, bike lanes. It's going to be a requirement that we meet a certain threshold or amount of points and criteria to be awarded future funded for road improvements for that grant fund. So this is taking a multi approach, combining these 4 different grants or for the downtown specific plan, these 3 separate grants. Separate housing, and really combining it into one project, something that not just meeting what NTC wants, but coming up with a really great project for us to really explore, have the public input on, and come up with a project or a downtown specific plan that we are happy with, that we want to address more things than what the grant opportunities allow us to do, and take a look at more of the specific details that are covered in a specific plan. So it's looking also at those infrastructure, the details, looking at, it could be looking at the medians, the street furniture, all the details that are currently included in our downtown specific plan, really expanding and taking another look at that plan as we decide to grow on this boundary as well. And so through this process, going through the greater downtown specific plan, we do have consultants on board through the grant. The primary consultant is Forward City Labs. They have actually started outreach, public outreach on this approach on updating our downtown specific plan. We started public outreach a few weeks ago, June 18th at the Thursday Twilight Market in downtown on 3rd Street. We also, this past weekend, had 2 outreach events as well, 2 pop-ups. One during the Sidewalk Saturdays this past Saturday at the end of 3rd Street. We were in front of Jaunty's and Railroad Park, providing information and getting public input. And then as well as at Gallon Park during the Parks and Rec night, the summer fun night that they had at Gallon Park. And so we're really just in the beginning stages of kickstarting this, getting some general ideas, public input, these overall arching ideas from the public. What do they see that they love about Morgan Hills downtown? What do they want to see more of? What improvements can we make? Where are there areas, not just on buildings, on zoning, but also other aspects that we covered in the specific plan, such as crosswalks. Where should those crosswalks be? What kind of lighting do we need? How that pedestrian scale, how do we have that access, that pedestrian and bicycle access, so that people don't have to drive through all of downtown to get to certain areas. Looking at that really greater area and seeing how can people not just drive into downtown and park in one spot and then walk around, but areas north or east of the train station past the VTA lot, those residential areas, how do they access downtown? Do we have to look at different ways or what restrictions are there from them walking from their homes on that east side, coming to Monterey to visit restaurants or anything like that? And so taking this multi-pronged approach, tackling all these different issues. And so really just want to bring this to the Planning Commission. There's nothing to approve tonight. I just want to really daylight this to you as we're doing this public outreach. And the Planning Commission is going to be serving as a technical advisory as we go through this process. So there'll be several community outreach meetings during the Planning Commission where we ask for feedback, where the consultants will come in with draft and with information as we go throughout this process. And so there'll be several meetings with the Planning Commission to get that feedback, get the direction on how do we proceed, what's important, what's our key aspects and key items that need to be addressed, or get feedback from the Planning Commission as well as from the public. And so we are still developing a comprehensive outreach plan, but there's going to be multiple ways on how we're going to conduct that outreach. Like I mentioned, we've done a few pop-ups already, so we're going to continue doing pop-ups. We're going to have some targeted outreach to key neighborhoods or key apartment buildings as well, to get feedback from all various community members. We'll be going out to the Chamber of Commerce, going out to the PBID to get their input as well, and really get input from both the public side, the business side, and the property owners as well. Inform them of this proposed project and to get their input on the development as we get through this entire project. And there, of course, will be a few community-wide meetings as we see fit. there'll be a walk audit, there'll be, a access, a gap analysis through that. We'll just doing a business walk through the community. There's multiple aspects on this, as I mentioned. So looking at the densities, the floor area ratios for office space, retail space, looking at the zoning land use for all these properties. We'll be looking at, of course, the access to and around downtown. And we'll also be doing a economic viability study to see when we think about about commercial uses, what's that economic benefits there? What is realistic to how much square footage is realistic within downtown or the greater area? Really do the deeper analysis than we would normally see in like a general plan type update. So specific plan is really digging into those details, and as we finalize the scope with the consultant and finalize the public outreach scope, I would also come back and share that with the planning commission. And so in here, in the staff report, there is a map of the greater downtown study area. It's both included in the staff report as well as a attachment, so you can really zoom in and get more detail on the boundaries. And so that map shows the existing boundary of the downtown specific plan, then the wider area that we're looking to expand, and also the half mile distance from the Caltrain station in downtown. And so going through this, there are several tables within the staff report. It is a little bit hard to read just based on how our formatting goes through Civic Clerk, through the program that we use to generate our staff reports. So I also included the MTC TOC policy guidance document. That's also an attachment to the staff report that really spells out the different densities that are being sought after by MTC. So it's looking at both minimum and maximum zoning densities. And one of the aspects of this whole thing is that when this first started, MTC ranked us with our train station at a higher tier, meaning that they want to originally see higher densities, lower parking requirements. And we had the communications with MTC as they were developing this policy and where they really put what tier they put us at. And so we successfully, with the service that we currently have for our transit and the level of service with just the number of stops that we have within Morgan Hill, with having 4 routes going north in the morning and only 4 routes south in the afternoon. With that limited service, we were able to get it down to the lowest tier possible, which is tier 4. And so through this, we were able to, or what NCC would like to see, and is 25 units to the acre for the minimum density, with a maximum of 35 units per acre. Other things that they would like to see is the floor area ratio, that we have a floor area ratio of 1 or higher for our commercial or office space projects. And then with a maximum of a floor area ratio of 3.0. And then for our parking policy, what it really is establishing maximum parking standards, which we currently do not have within the city. And so that within that half-mile area, what they want to see is a parking maximum. And so be taking a look at that. And then as I mentioned, on the transit side, before I go into the transit, so for the parking, it's looking at automobile as well as bicycle parking as well. So we have conversations on both of those in the future. And then of course, on the station access and circulation, what we need to do is identify a mobility hub planning document. And so that would be something that consultants will be doing. Looking at the 15-minute bike sheds, 15-minute walk sheds from the downtown. And so with this, we have the project being funded, or grant funded, going through this process, and it's gonna be I mentioned earlier, a 2-year process, so we're expecting to get to, planning commission and city council and probably in 2 years, so like about June and July of 2028 is when we expect the project to be completed. There are some deadlines by MTC for future funding. Although, as I mentioned at the beginning, that the city council adopted a resolution last year in 2025, we didn't get the grant funded from MTC until the beginning of this year. So almost a year after we accepted the grant, we didn't get the funding. And even with that, they have certain deadlines by next year, by July 1st, 2027, where they want to see some achievements. And for OBAG 4, so it's the 4th cycle of the OBAG funded for the roads. They would like to see, or we have to see where we can land within that frame to see how much funding we can potentially get in OBAG 4. So applications for that 4th round is due by July 1st. And we're gonna be based on the point system that they have on those future funding. And then it's gonna be more strict later years. So there's gonna be a set aside of funding by July 1st, 2027, if for any jurisdictions that are compliant. There's gonna be a set funding for that, for those jurisdictions. And then after that, the following year or two, it's gonna be that everyone would have to be compliant with their policies, meet a certain threshold on the points in order to get the funding in future years. So there's the carrot and stick type of thing going on. But luckily, not all jurisdictions were not awarded grants. We were one of the few, and one of the very few, I think one out of 3 or 4 jurisdictions that got funded in all 4 categories. So luckily, we were able to achieve this and execute this this grant and get the funding for it. I'm happy to answer any questions or if there's any additional details that's needed at this time, but of course, we'll be back in the near future as well.
I'm sure the commission has a few questions. I have one before Paul, where you start. So the grants you got, I think is a little bit over $1 million, right, total? And will that take us through with the consultants through the development of the approved plan?
So we, in long range planning, we do have funding to support any additional work. We're still finalizing the contract because this work will require an EIR.
Oh, well, okay.
Yes. And so we will be conducting an EIR on this project. The level of the EIR is still to be determined, but it's expected to be an addendum EIR. And so there is funding within the long range plan division to fund for that EIR.
Okay. I just have one more question, and I'll turn it over to the rest of the commission. And this could be a dumb question, but so we have a specific downtown plan. We have a general plan, then we have a housing element plan, so to speak. How does this dovetail into that?
Yeah, so the general plan is really high level. It's kind of when people talk about, they talk about like levels. And so the general plan is really like looking down from the sky, like a 30,000 square or 30,000 foot level, looking down at property and painting a picture of we have residential, commercial, industrial, mixed use type uses. And so the general plan is really looking at those type of issues as well as density. So looking at residential densities as well as floor area ratios. The specific plan is unique. It's looking at it's looking at densities, so it's really flushing out those densities. It includes zoning. And it also includes all those very minute details. So it looks at the streetscape, it looks at traffic, it looks at just access, what type of street furniture, it looks at infrastructure. So it's all encompassing within that boundary. And so with that, so you have the general plan. And then trying to think how to word it.
The easy way for me to understand it is a specific plan is a very detailed general plan for a specific area.
Oh, that part,
Right, so it's compliant with the general plan, but it's very specific for that area and sort of supplants the general plan and what goes on in that area.
no, that part I understand. I guess I didn't explain my question accurately. So you have an existing downtown specific plan right now. So how is this new plan gonna dovetail with that? Is it
It's gonna replace it.
Yeah, it's
Oh, it's
gonna,
gonna replace
it's
it,
gonna
okay,
completely replace it.
there you go,
So we're gonna rewrite the entire
Oh, okay.
specific. plan.
perfect, right, thank you.
And we've already
Thank you,
done a portion of it by adopting the form-based.
Oh, okay,
So that's part of what would go into that plan.
got it,
So that when you're looking at the hierarchy, it goes general plan, specific plan, zoning. Housing element is part of the general plan, but on a different update schedule
okay,
than the normal general
And with the state oversight
plan.
that isn't true of all of the other
Right.
plans,
Right.
other parts of the general plan.
Thank you,
And
Adam.
They can grant certification or take it away, as we've been seeing all over.
Commissioner Lake.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So, I was gonna ask about, the general plan. Is there like it seems like when you do a general plan, you may or may not have a budget allocation to that specific element. Does this now attach like a budget to that specific plan? Is that what it is, or did you have a prior budget for the high level plan?
Yeah, so this grant will cover all encompassing, so it will cover anything that we need to update within our general plan on densities. And then it will cover pretty much all the written document for the specific plan. So it's for the general plan, it's looking at that very specific issue, and only that for the general plan. We have other budgets to update other sections of the general plan, but those are separate projects.
Excellent. And then the other question I had is about, does the MOGO experiment we had a while ago will play any part of this new plan?
So, the simple answer is no. That will be MOGO. We looked at different ways on how we can bring MOGO back by how can we fund it. At this time, we do not have a plan on how to bring it back, but it's always something that we are looking into and having further discussions on.
But that type of transportation is gonna be something that's talked about in this, because that's how you get people to the transportation hub. Or as one point in the staff reporter and the TOC guidelines talked about, how do you get people from the transportation hub to like the job centers? How do we get people that come in on the bus to Trump, to Archer? Right? So that those workers can do it. Right? That's part of this discussion, is how do we get people to be able to use public transportation and get to our job centers? When you have a big job center like that, that makes that a pretty significant conversation to have.
Great comment, Joe. And are we looking at, because our current downtown area has a certain footprint, right? It goes like from Main to East Dunn. Are we planning to like expand the footprint of the downtown?
Yes, so on the south side so you're correct, that the current downtown specific plan is from Main to Dunn, and then from Del Monte on the west to Butterfield Boulevard on the east. And so we're not looking to change the boundary on the east. On the south side, we're looking to go further south towards San Pedro Avenue, almost to the, basically to the post office. And then on the north side, expanded it much further, almost to the railroad overpass. Over near the fire station.
Oh, right, okay.
And then we're along Main. We're looking to expand to the west all the way to Galvin Park.
By the way, compliments on speaking without a teleprompter for a good half hour. Amazing. Thank you.
Well, it also includes all the area of the shopping center on the southwest corner of Monterey.
Yes. Yes, so it'll include that Ross shopping center, and then other parcels that are on that west side of Monterey, just south of that shopping center.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Joseph.
Okay, Adam, what you said verbally and what I read in the staff report on housing didn't quite agree, I don't think. So in the staff report, you talked about housing policy, how you retain it, how much affordability and things like that. But what you seem to say is the housing is gonna go completely away and we're not gonna talk about it to somebody. And it seems to me the housing part of it, the physical housing part, and where we put housing and where the density is a very important part of this plan that the public is extremely concerned about.
Yes, so, so I apologize for that. So there are two. The way I was thinking about it, so housing for density is going to be included for this. Zoning for housing will be included as part of this plan, the
Right.
specific plan update. The housing part is that I was saying that will be separated from this is our affordable housing policies. And
And how you protect it and some other things that I read in here. Okay,
right, and just to touch on that, since just to build clarity. So things that we are looking to do for housing policies is taking a look at our affordable housing fund. So our inclusionary housing ordinance, so that'll be a separate item that we'll bring to planning commission in the near future. We are gonna be looking at public land for affordable housing, so we'll be identifying properties, evaluating those. We'll draft a market feasibility study, and we'll be bringing that to plan commission in the near future as well. Through that, we identified 3 sites. It's not just in downtown, but sites throughout the city. So there's 6 total policies that we're looking at. Another one is the condominium conversion ordinance. So we're looking to draft an ordinance for that as well. And next is a mobile home preservation ordinance that we are drafting currently as well. And then also a foreclosure assistance ordinance. And so all of those, and we're looking to, and there's one more, the mobile home rent stabilization ordinance. So those 4 ordinances, what we're looking to do is probably bundle those together and do some public outreach. Go out to the public, get some feedback, go out and get feedback from the mobile home parks, get feedback from other property owners as well, get feedback from housing agencies on these different ordinances. And because the whole point of these is to help preserve affordable housing. It's not just affordable housing that are included in our BMRs or inclusionary housing ordinance. It's looking at other things that would help people who are in the threat of being foreclosed on. It's looking at mobile home parks, which are not necessarily identified as affordable housing, but it serves as affordable options within Morgan Hill. And so it's looking at ways on how can we preserve those properties and really maintain those affordable rents or those affordable housing options.
Okay, now, you talked about, FARs and density, units, those are area-wide averages, not project-specific. So how do you determine the area average and how do we deal with it? Because that's a big part, and when are we gonna know our existing state?
Yes, so we are currently looking to identify that, so it is our averages, so it's not saying that all properties within this half mile or has to have these density ranges. It's taking a look at different types of zoning districts that we could, or amending our densities within these areas. Where some areas will maybe a lot, it could be higher, other areas a lot lower. And the way how the formula works, it's looking at properties that are either vacant or likely to be redeveloped. It's not taking, looking at that half mile, on the east side of the city, we have a lot of single family residential neighborhoods. So the way how the policy works and the guidance from MTC is we can limit or remove parcels that are fully developed and unlikely to be redeveloped. So as we're going through this process right now, we would be eliminating those properties on that east side of Butterfield and not include, and we do not have to include those within our calculations.
Well, but there's more than on the east side.
Yes,
I mean, when you look at just the east side of Depot, that's all new housing. That's not gonna redevelop for decades. But yet they require us to meet for the area a 25 minimum to be compliant, if I read it right.
right.
So do you
And-
exempt all that and just get down to some sort of much smaller number? That's gonna be really key for the public to understand
Right.
and quickly.
Originally, that number was 65,
Yeah.
and we fought really, really hard to get us out of that mix.
Right.
So luckily, 25 is one unit above what our current maximum is, which makes it a little bit easier to
Right, but it's
figure out
still,
ways to apply.
it's still, if you have to make the 25 average all the way across that whole area, there's lots of it that have been redeveloped or been developed in the last decade or two that is not gonna redevelop for many years.
Right.
And if we had to force redevelopment, it's gonna be a lot harder to do than do it. So how does that all get worked out? And how do we explain it to the public? And the same goes on the commercial floor area ratio, right? I don't even think we have a floor area ratio in our form-based code right now. I think we thought we took it out, didn't we?
We took it out.
Yeah, and now they're coming back saying you gotta have it in because you can't go over 3.
So, for all these, I'm still having discussions with MTC staff. And they have their. So we're still in conversation with them on how this calculation works and what areas we can exclude within our calculations and what properties we have to focus on. So we are still working that out and we're not ready to have those conversations yet, but it will be something, we'll come back with a map that shows what that boundary is on what properties we would have to include within that calculations.
I'm done.
Good. Commissioner Habib?
Thank you, Chair. I just had a few clarifying questions, Adam. So the first one earlier on, you mentioned that there was the timeline or at least the deadline for compliance to be sometime in, I believe you were saying July of 2027. And I was looking at the staff report too, and it also mentions that we're hoping to have at least the specific plan completed by roughly the summer of 2028. So how does that come? Is the compliance going to be able to be achieved before we have the completed specific plan?
Yeah, so through this entire process, talking about the July 1st, 2027 date. There are different buckets in funded for OBAG 4. And so there's one bucket where if people or if jurisdictions are in compliance by July 1st, 2027, there's a certain dollar amount that we could apply for. If we're not in compliant, there's still going to be funding available, but not as much. And so the way how this all works is it's on a point system. So for each of these different categories and even subcategories for each of these, you get assigned points. So one thing is we're taking the housing policies separate. So those ordinances, housing ordinances, the preservation ordinances, those are things that we could get completed before January 1st, 2027 and try to get the most maximum number of points on those items. There's other things that we can do on the other side. For example, for like bicycle parking, there's a possibility where we get that completed before July 1st, 2027. We update our bicycle parking ordinance for the city and get points for that. So it's looking at where we can get points by that deadline and to see if we achieve the minimum number of points to get that additional funding. So there's other areas such as like the densities where we might not achieve, but you get points on if you achieve the maximum density for residential density, you get a separate points for if you achieve the minimum density. Same thing with the floor area ratios. If you meet the maximum floor area ratio or if you meet the minimum floor area ratio. And so today, if we didn't do anything on those densities and those floor area ratios, and we didn't adopt an updated downtown specific plan, we will still get points. We just won't get the maximum number of points.
Okay, and the points are there to determine the amount of grant funding or eventual funding that you're eligible for?
So the points, the way how MTC finalized it is that you have to achieve, I believe it was 75 points in order to be eligible for that additional funding. And so it's not like if you achieve 50 points, then you can get 50% of that funded. They established the 75 point threshold. If you meet that 75 or if you get 100, you still have the same chances of getting that additional funding. And if you fall below that 75 points, then you can't get any of that additional funding.
Got it. And that's really based off of what you're producing to MTC. So it could, for example, be more aspirational than practical, and so on. It's just based off of their analysis of what you end up along those 4 priority areas that you develop and hand over to them.
Correct.
Okay. And then let's see. So I think one of the commissioners, I think it was actually the chair, that already talked about the interactions between different items like the general plan, specific plan, and so on. I think this was more specific for the Monterey corridor form-based code. I think it's been 2 or 3 some years since we completed that. And so since that, I guess, kind of technically falls under zoning, is that one of the other items that would need to be updated?
Possibly. It depends on what that boundary looks like with these discussions with MTC on the areas that we would need to include. Or if we decide to develop a new zoning district or something, a new form-based code zoning district to achieve those densities. But the idea for this whole project is, so we have the form-based code along the Monterey corridor, but we don't have a form-based code within the downtown specific plan. We don't have a form-based code on some of the areas along, or most of the areas along Main Street to the west towards Galvin Park. Even some of the areas that are north that we're looking to expand, there's some parcel that currently do not have a form-based zoning district. And so it'll be looking at all these, see if we want to expand the form-based zoning code. If we want to create new zones, especially within the existing boundary of the downtown specific plan. Do we want to create a new or several new form-based code zoning districts that only pertain to the downtown? Or it could, the ideas are endless right now. And
Yeah.
so we're trying to, as we go through this process, we're gonna, myself as well as the consultant are gonna develop some ideas and bring those ideas to the planning commission in the future to see how can we achieve these densities, or how can we get close to where we get enough points for the future.
Got it. And along those same lines, so talking about, possible or the possibilities of how we can really use what we have to achieve the goals was on page 1 of the staff report, it says where we have the map, the location map / project information. And I think it was actually a really nice visual to help understand where the original or the current downtown specific plan was, and then where it's expanding along the red dotted lines, and then really, at least how I understood it, the TOC area that they're primarily focused on. And so for me, it was a little bit hard to understand. And I think this Commissioner Lake might have also brought this up a little bit too, was how we fit the rest of what TOC is focusing on versus what we're expanding when it comes to the downtown specific plan. And the reason I say that is because as you're looking at the orange dotted circle, a lot of the area that the TOC covers, I don't know exactly, maybe 35–40% is outside of where we're currently looking at, including the expanded downtown specific plan. And so it is that along the TOC priorities, if we are really just able to focus on expanding the downtown specific plan for now, would that really achieve what TOC is looking for? Or will we eventually maybe need to do something that might look more like a TOC specific plan? Again, not to say that's exactly what it is, but when you kind of look at those possibilities of expanding because of how much of the area is covered to the east and to the west, where TOC wants to see some of those priorities fall. So again, just kind of me thinking out loud too, and making a comment around like how can we actually achieve what they want us to achieve, given the limited scope that we have when it comes to using the downtown specific plan to at least cover what the TOC wants.
Yeah. So as part of the grant and my conversation with the MTC, we had these discussions with them. We want to not only try to achieve what MTC wants, but we want to come with a product that we would be happy with. And so we went beyond this half mile that TOC is requesting us to look at, and to go outside this half mile circle with the red dash line border on this map. We were looking at areas that made sense to extend the downtown specific plan or the greater downtown specific plan. And so we didn't want just to end it where there was no roads or anything. We want to really extend it to areas that made sense to us, really terminate at specific roads. And although this is outside of the MTC policy and what they want to achieve, they agreed that this made better sense to include as part of the project and that they would help fund the specific plan out to these other properties. So when we do look at those densities, the residential densities, the floor area ratios, it's only looking within that half mile circle. But then, like I mentioned before, we are able to exclude certain properties, and so we're still in those discussions with MTC on the specific properties that we can exclude from the calculations in order to figure out if we meet minimum or maximum densities.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it also makes sense too, as again, given the practicality of it, right? There are some locations that are even closer than if you go way up north on Monterey Road that are just east on East Main or along East Main, and that kind of go into some of the development on the east side of the railroad. And so again, just kind of looking at how we can possibly bring that in, even though it might not be as practical, obviously, just looking at the downtown specific plan. But I think that would be something of my interest, is seeing how we can really connect those other areas that are not necessarily within the downtown specific plan, and actually enable people to be able to access transit in a much more easier, efficient way. The other question I had too was in regards to the grant coverage. And again, I think one of the commissioners also talked about this a little bit. And so my question was, can the grants be used for things that the city already needs to do? So maybe like infrastructure capacity analysis. We kind of talked about like baseline. I think that was Commissioner Mueller who talked about some type of understanding of baseline, like what we currently have for eventually what you need for like an average density and so on. So is it possible where we are able to use some of the grant funding for things that helps the city planning beyond the TOC area and beyond what we have grant funding for, so that way we can have maybe better planning for other areas down the line?
Yes, so some areas we are doing that on certain aspects. So for example, like bicycle parking, we're not looking only within the half mile. We're looking at, does it make sense to have these bicycle standards throughout the entire city? For other things, it's looking at the housing policy. So the affordable housing or inclusionary housing ordinance, we want to take another look at that anyway. This provide us an opportunity on how can we update that for affordable housing, and how can we generate more funding towards affordable housing. It's taking a look at other things that's going to help us with our transportation element update that we're looking to work on in the next year. And so taking all these different aspects, although it's going to be geared towards this downtown specific plan, we're able to use a lot of this either citywide or for other projects that we're going to be working on pretty soon. And so I guess we were lucky to get awarded this grant in order to really help out us throughout the city on other aspects, and then on potential future grant funding as well.
Great, thank you, Adam. And I just wanted to do a final comment too. I wanted to appreciate a couple of the things that you had shared with us. I think it's really phenomenal to be able to go out and beyond and get the grant funding. It's something that not many other cities were able to accomplish. And so I just wanted to give a kudos to the team to be able to do that. And on top of that, being able to get more flexibility. I think it was from the tier 2 to the tier 4 where you couldn't do parking requirements and so on. And so I think it was really great to be able to, advocate for the city and get a little bit more flexibility, get that grant, the grant funding for something that's really needed. And also with the EIR, I think it's great that you're looking at the addendum versus possibly the full EIR, full blown EIR, which again can obviously get like really costly and quite inundated. So I just wanted to give you a kudos for that. Thanks, Adam. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yep. Commissioner Dowd.
Yeah, a few questions. Actually, I'll start. I want to second what Mohammed just said. First of all, congratulations and compliments for getting this far. And I think it's a testament to staff, as always, as regards I have to assume you're very organized, you're very tenacious, but also I think it sounds like you're very good at building relationships as well. People tend to help you when they like you. And I think people don't realize that a lot of times, but I can tell just by the conversations you've had, and Morgan Hill always seems to stand out. And I think it's just a testament to the way staff approaches this stuff, right? You can be a bit of an ASS about it sometimes, and people will listen to you, but they don't honestly can do something. But so congratulations with that. I still don't understand, just following up on Mohammed's question too. So you get this grant and there are some deadlines. is there a specific grant issue expectation, let's say at the end of July? Are you supposed to, is there expectation of a deliverable? You've implemented something, or you have a plan to implement something? What happens, like, let's say, and then, you know what I mean? So for example, here's my plan for better mobility, for example, as opposed to I physically have done something. What is the expectation there?
And you're talking about the July twenty
As an
twenty-seven.
example, right, yeah.
So there's still those discussions with MTC to see where, to see how can we achieve those points or how those points awarded, if there's a path forward, or if it has to be implemented by that date. And so it's still unknown right now. And it may still be unknown in 6 months, but we're gonna try to do the best on what we can do on getting what makes sense for Morgan Hill to get the most points as possible to meet that date. If it appears that we aren't gonna get enough points and then we have to have everything implemented by that date, we will rethink it, or we will figure out a way to really just adjust and make sure that we're getting the best overall project and not rush through certain aspects of it. But as I mentioned before, even if we don't do anything, we are still getting points because we do meet certain thresholds already. We have a complete streets policy, so we get points for that already. Just the only caveat is if we don't do anything now, we obviously don't have enough points to get to that July 1st, 2027 date to get that additional funding. But we think we have a path forward where we might be close to the points. It just depended on from MTC what their direction is, or how they decide to implement it, or how to award points, if it has to be just a path forward or it has to be like a fully adopted specific plan in order to get those.
Yeah,
MTC is also listening to all the cities. Originally, the points, it was gonna be a competition. And based on the number of points, that's how much OPEC funding you would get. And there was tremendous pushback on that because San Francisco, Oakland, and San Jose would take all the money. So now it's, okay, well, there'll be a base level as long as you're compliant, and then the competition from there. But that could even change because everything's in flux right now.
those San Francisco guys. So, and the reason my question was, I understand sometimes you gotta get to step one, you know, like this. And then to get to step two, you have to do something in step one and then for step three. So it's kind of a progression thing. But I'd hate for us to be so focused on getting points and proposing stuff that may not be very practical or not necessarily necessary, but needed or wanted by the community, right? So I'd love to see us balance out. You obviously have to follow the process, right, to get what you need, but also whatever we plan to do, that it's practical. I'll give you an example, right? I was talking to someone recently who lives in the city, not here in the US, as an example, where the European Union is giving massive grants for bike lanes, dedicated bike lanes, right? Which they put in a city that's always raining and windy and has 7 hills around it. Nobody uses them because they're completely impractical and they've taken away 1 lane of traffic, right? Never is up. I'm just as an example, right? So we were talking about, I am a proponent. I'd love to see better methods by which people can commute, travel short-term, long-term, come to work, go home from work. But the reality is, let's take Archer. I hate to use Archer as an example, but we just talked about it a few minutes ago. We just heard about it like 24 hours ago, and it's fantastic news. Like we have a train service that goes north in the morning, not south. We have a bus service that comes south in the evening, not north, right? So the practicality of someone coming to a large employer like that, or like a Specialized or other large employers in the city, that can get to where they want to get you in a reasonable amount of time without using a vehicle is very impractical. Unless they do what Apple does and Google, and they have a dedicated bus, right? That picks them up and drops them specifically to a location. So what I'm saying is, what's good for downtown sometimes is not necessarily good for the rest of the community. For example, you do high density housing, which I also support, right? I think we need it. I'd love to see a proposal that is more focused on possibly redevelopment rather than development, because I think downtown in that new map area, there's not a whole lot of undeveloped land. Some, but not a whole lot. But there's definitely a lot of opportunities that could potentially be redeveloped, right? But if that means high density housing with no parking, right? The greater community is going, how do I get downtown? Where do I park, right? And I would think for our Chamber of Commerce and for downtown businesses, you gotta do it. I was down there last Friday night, there was a Friday night music series, I could not find a park to save my life. I drove around for 20 minutes. I finally did get one, about 6 blocks away, but like, I'm saying it's a problem. So what I'm saying is, I know we have to play the game, I know you have to follow the process. You do what you need to do, but let's do things that are practical as well, and maybe not just good for downtown, but for the general community.
We also have an opportunity to build on existing state law. So we may get credit for changing our codes to comply with existing state law. We may not like it. For example, AB 2097 that eliminated parking standards for every use within a half mile of a train station. Well, our codes don't say no parking, but the law does. So if we change the code, we might get credit, even though, and nobody will like that change, but the law is already there. So it's those types of wins that we're also looking for. Adam has done a tremendous job with the grant writing, where we're getting a 2-for-1 deal to comply with the TOC, get our OVAC, but also update an older specific plan at the same time and make it more relevant to the city. It's just how to mesh all of that together within the timeline that we need to meet.
Yeah, my last comment is, when you do these outreaches, I know you mentioned a lot of, you do the physical events, seem to be relatively close to downtown. Remember, the majority of the community lives outside of the downtown, and I think you need to get their input too, right? They have a vested interest as well, although you might directly impact people more in that half-mile zone. But I think the greater community, I think, should have an input as well, so let's try and consider that too.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No, and good job out of it.
Mr. Milano?
Thank you, Chair. Adam, thank you very much. I think I've told this story a couple of times to city employees, but one of the main factors for moving here in Morgan Hill was downtown. There was a housing community approved by this commission that luckily me and my family moved into. And I can't tell you how many walking dates I've been on with my wife, how many family dinners I've had because of the walking distance. So any project that helps to improve or expand downtown, fully support. So I'm really excited for something like this, where this commission actually gets to be really involved in that growth. But I do have some clarifying questions. Something that was brought up a lot from residents is, especially if we're going to be expanding downtown, the character. Are we going to really focus on making sure that the existing character of downtown expands to this? The median trees that are lit up, that are brand new, that we just lit up, and now all these different colors based on the event, is that going all the way to San Pedro? Is it going to go north? I mean, that's the staple of knowing you're in downtown. It's just to follow the trees. I'm looking forward to the parades being longer now. We have a lot more options to sit for the parade route. Our closed streets, are we going to be using these as closed street events? We closed that little portion all the way from Dunn to, I forgot where exactly it starts. But are we going to look at expanding that closed street?
No, we're not, because I do the logistics for that.
So actually, that is one of the things I'm thinking of. Are we going to be expanding those closed street events now? Obviously, the walking traffic helps the local businesses. That's going to be great. But my question is, are we going to be focusing on the character? Making sure that the existing or some of those keystone buildings not touched, refurbished, yes, but we've got some buildings. I mean, the cigar shop now is what the market. That's a prime example of don't tear down, don't remodel, just put somebody new in there. Is that kind of the focus of downtown as we expand, keep that character? That was my question.
Yeah, so So the specific plan kind of does get into like those particulars. So it's looking at the character, what do we want to see, how do we want it to look like? There's options. Do we want to expand these certain characteristics north and south and to the west? Do we want to consider something slightly different? Do we want to have a little bit different feel in these other areas? So that's all discussions that we will have in the future. And so it's, right now, I don't know, but it could be the same all throughout or slightly different in different areas.
Yeah, and I'm not saying like cookie cutter, every building needs to be the
Right.
same, I get that. All these new developments are slightly different already, but there are certain staples that are downtown Morgan Hill that shouldn't be expanded. The trees, we're looking a lot more at the outdoor eating. I mean, that was pushed during COVID, but we're enjoying it, so we're kind of having that new feel of those options. Even some of the roads closed and expanded on those little outlets that are now like at the dust trail. You get that whole new build out of the outdoor eating. You can see that as far as some of these smaller outlet streets. So those are just my comments. The last question I have is just outreach. Commissioner already had brought it up, but specifically, two categories. Our outreaching to youth, who we want to stay in the community. Always they're gonna bike, walk, or e-bike into our downtown. We want them to use the establishment. And our seniors, how are we gonna reach out to them? And our Spanish speaking community. What's your plan to outreach to them? Cause I know pop-ups are great, but where? Youth, who are we talking to? I know we have the Youth Outreach Council. But is that the only voice for youth? Like, what's your plan to outreach to those?
Yeah. So we are still developing that outreach plan,
Okay.
but those are all different populations that we are looking at and how can we reach those? And so that's definitely something that will be covered. And with youth, it's also looking at how can we get the schools involved, both the high schools, middle schools, looking at all different approaches. But once we do have that outreach plan, I will share it with the commission.
If I can just encourage not only Youth Action Council, but some of these schools have school site councils, PTAs are a good one. So if I can just encourage some insight on the outreach, love to help you part of that. So, all right, thank you.
You want to talk about your high school?
Yeah, so separately, I also, as I think all of you have seen, I've also received separate grants where I have high school interns. So it's a possibility where they could help on certain aspects of this. They can also help with outreach as well. So that's a possibility as too. They have particular projects that they're working on. So this past semester, 5 of them presented to the planning commission on the safety element on the climate vulnerability assessment. So I have 5 interns this coming school year that will also help, and also looking to apply for additional grants where I may get additional high school interns as well, and really expand the scope and how much they can assist with certain projects. And this downtown, greater downtown specific plan could be an approach.
I have to ask one more thing is for the part of the outreach, is there gonna be an online survey? Is that the community can? And then if you're saying interns, BTA, we use interns all the time. They are so social media savvy. They know the latest trends. So if you're gonna do some type of social media involvement, using your interns to help promote that on social media, stuff that I'm part of Instagram, all that fun stuff, I would encourage you to use them for that.
Just thinking the exact
Yeah,
same.
They know how to
They know
make
where
those
the same-
memes that
Yeah,
go viral. It's a great way to get online interaction for any kind of surveying you're doing.
I
So-
can see you on TikTok.
I think the ice bucket challenge is back, so we'll go for it.
That'll be good for the summer. It's really hot outside. Well, this talk about surveys. So we do have a live survey right now on our website. So we do have a greater downtown specific plan website that's up and running. There's a notify me list on there for anyone that's interested to sign up and be notified of future outreach events. The survey is live now. People can go on to the, if they've seen me out at community events, there's a QR code that they can scan to get to our website. Anyone that's watching or listening to this meeting, if they go to our website, type in Greater Downtown Specific Plan, it'll bring you right to our website. There's a link on there for a survey. And for people who complete the survey within the next month, they can also input their email address. And if they do that, then they are enter into for a $50 Amazon gift card. So we're looking at different ways on providing this outreach, doing the surveys, get that input, as well as doing the pop-ups.
David, would you agree to a little bit of criticism here, but that sounds like a lot of work for somebody to go find a survey. And it's kind of what I call a pull method. In other words, they have to go and pull it as opposed to pushing it to them,
Mhm.
right? And that's where social media comes in. You gotta push it out to them, right? We have thousands of people on our social media platforms around the city. Push it out and see if we could have the interns do that to have people react more immediate. You know, just as you said, click a button, take a 2-minute survey, answer a few questions. I just find sometimes when it's embedded in a website or, you know, who's watching here, nobody, right? It's hard for them to go click 7 times to find something as opposed to just pushing through. Right?
Yeah.
But I think the younger generation has its own ways of working through TikTok or Instagram or whatever it is, right? How they approach it. I would listen to the interns in terms of how they communicate and how they get the most response, and let them sort of guide us in how to get that. Because I just think it's different than we think. I don't even touch some of that stuff.
Yeah, so I'll just speak a little bit more. So on the survey part, during like these past 3 pop-ups, we had the QR code, we have staff there telling people about the survey to scan this code. You can go on here, take the survey, be entered for the drawing. We are also sending postcards out to everyone within this boundary with the QR code, let them know that there's a survey available, get them familiar with the project as well. And so,
Why only people within the zone?
so because so we're sending to every single address, every single I forget how the post office worded it, but it's going out to everyone within this boundary and let them know about what's happening with their property, why they're included. And so it's both the informational as well as a survey, but we are continuing doing, and we will be continuing doing additional outreach this coming months and get more people to complete the survey. It's not just people who live in this area, but anyone who that we interact with when we are talking about this project. That
Okay, so you said something in there that caught my eye. You said within the circle. Okay, there's a lot of this area that's outside the circle. So if we
Yes.
talk about a boundary, what boundary are we concentrating on? Because the area outside the circle makes a big difference. If within a half mile of 85 doesn't mean anything, then that's a different area than what we're talking about.
I apologize if I said circle, but it's looking at the entire boundary of the greater downtown. So
Okay.
the dash
Okay,
area.
yeah, okay, so if we're talking about that whole area, then, yeah, we just, the whole community wants to be involved, right? It's not just there. We need to talk to the people because they're directly impacted.
Right,
their
the
property is directly
notifications would be
impacted.
different. There's the legal, and then there's the come and participate in what you want downtown to be. It's a
Yeah,
very different message.
right, and so we need to make sure they're included and they get all the notifications of that, but we need to get everybody else involved. Because when you touch downtown, you touch everybody in the city, right? You know, the Taste of Morgan Hill disappeared during the pandemic, and I think everybody would want it back. Right, if we knew how to do it. And so we just need to reach to everybody so that they get included in some of it. You need to meet all the legal requirements and all that too.
Right, Okay, so I think we've covered survey thoroughly. Anything else?
No, I will just remind, the key, demographics hardest to hit for a social media campaign is, seniors and our Spanish speaking community. So even though social media, I'm in communication, so I'm not speaking out of my, you know what. So just, it's important to know that you've got to work on connecting with those communities where they're at. Our Spanish speaking, my abuelito, he does not do social media, barely got him off the flip phone. So we gotta make sure that we're focusing our Spanish community too, or Spanish speaking community, or other. So going where they're at is key for outreach, not just pop-ups at a certain grocery store or anything like that. So love to know what the outreach plan is for.
Yeah, so I can speak a little bit on the Spanish only speaking outreach. So through this process, through the community engagement process, the grant is gonna pay for a Spanish facilitator, so we're looking to, not the city, but through our consultant, looking to hire like a promotora to help go out to the community, get that additional feedback, have assistance at any community meetings, to help translate, to speak directly with residents or community members. It's not just, when we think about community members, it's not just residents, but also employees. So it could be our workforce within Morgan Hill. It's looking at our community, our Spanish speaking community south of Dunn, when we went out and did the Healthy Neighborhoods for All outreach. That was a key area that we focused on, because that's where we had a large of our Spanish only speakers located, as well as on the west side of Monterey. And so we are going to be doing, we'll have a Spanish facilitator assistant with the outreach as well.
Thank you.
The work done on the Healthy Neighborhoods initiative has established a significant network of folks connected to Adam. The outreach that was done on that project was just amazing. And so I think that our outreach to the Spanish speaking community is because of that work. We already have this network in place that we're able to take advantage of in the future.
I felt that engagement was very strong at it.
Okay, yeah. Let's bring it on home with one question. So the form, I know, oh, sorry, I touched your chair. Then don't have to touch me. Adam, what is our goal? When are we gonna have the final outreach plan ready? Just spitball.
Yeah, hopefully within the next month.
Perfect. All right. Mr. Loudon.
Thank you. Well, thanks to my brilliant and highly experienced colleagues, I have very few questions remaining. Doing to me in the Newcomb block, I do have a couple. So I think the plan, and you said earlier that our role is to be provide technical assistance to creating this plan. Can you help just very briefly? What does that look like? Is it going to be like 10 meetings over the course of the next year, where we focus on various elements that are coming forward? Is it a workshop format where we can just have interactive dialogue? So what does that look like briefly?
So it'll be coming back to the planning commission during key milestones. If you give me a minute, I can look at the draft schedule.
Is it, I assume that we'll be looking at productions of draft documents and kind of voluminous documents that will probably hardly be able to dive into.
Yeah, so I mean, it'll be broken down into key like bite-sized pieces, so it's not going to be providing a whole bunch of information all at once. We're still we'll be tackling particular processes and everything. Hold on, I need to reconnect here, I'm gonna apologize. But just give me a second, it's was looking at several different meeting dates in the future to meet with the planning commission. So there'll be a minimum of at least four planning commission study sessions. And there will be, so there'll be at least four with a consultant, and plus we will do extra from city staff, without the consultant support on other aspects of this, so that could be, I would imagine anywhere between 8 and 12.
So a study session kind of format where, again, based on the fact that you're looking at us to be technical advisors, you'll be presenting to us and listening to our feedback based on what you presented. Okay.
Correct.
And I believe too, correct me if I'm wrong, Adam, that we'll take advantage of regular meeting dates.
Okay.
Unless is too much on the agenda, we need to do a special meeting.
There,
And then I think I heard that, of course, I'm sure they're all gonna be open to the public, but will there be specific public input meetings in front of the planning commission? Or the input meetings are really held elsewhere?
so anything that we have with the planning commission would also be open to the public, just like
Of
tonight.
course, right.
Where members of the public will also provide feedback and comments. I also want to add that there's gonna be other outreach events that won't be during planning commission, but the planning commissioners will be invited to, so like a walk audit or something like that, as we do other different ways of doing community outreach and getting public feedback.
And then, in the end, I couldn't remember if you already said, are we an approving body as well? Although I assume the council's the final approval, or are we just kind of an accept of reports and accepting of?
Yeah,
drafts?
so you'll be going through this process on everything. It'll be a recommendation to the city council.
Okay. With regards to our funding source, because are the grants 100% funding, or are there some portions that we're having to cough up some money to complete either the study work and the draft work, or any projects that come of it?
So the grant is paying for everything. We would just need to fund a portion of the EIR that's gonna be formed. And then there's also gonna be, there's optional tasks depending on what happens in the future, if there's anything that we want to add onto it. And with those optional tasks, since the grant funding will be expended, if depending on where we are, if there's anything that we want, like a change order or something like that, that's gonna exceed the grant budget, then the city would have to pay for it.
Okay, and generally speaking, does any of the work that we're doing right now in creating this updated plan in the next 2 years, or any projects that are prompted by it, do any of those hit the general fund at all? Or is
No.
this pretty much always gonna hit capital funds?
No, so any of these additional fundings, such as paying for the EIR, is funded through the long range planning fund. So we have a fund that's, there's a percentage that we take in from permits, from planning permits, engineering permits, building permits, that pays for these long range plans. And so through that budget, through our adopted 2-year budget, we have allocated funds within the next 2 years to help pay for this additional work that's not covered by the grant, as well as other projects. So it's not just, we don't just have a 2-year budget just to work on this. We have a number of different projects that we are working on that we have funded for.
Okay. Thank you, that's all I have.
Thank you.
I think it's important to remember that this is an enabling document. When we get things done and we get it, this really enables us to qualify for things several years in the future, right? That if we don't do it, we won't be able to do.
And it helps us provide, or it'll give us the tools to apply for other grants as well, not just for OBEG funding, but
Right.
other future funding if we want to do something else, a city type project within the downtown or the greater downtown.
Okay. Thank you. So our audience, both of them have been very patient, so I'd like to know if they have any public comment.
No, thank you.
Okay. Do we have anybody online?
Check. I don't see anyone online.
How about a comment from our business development?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening. I appreciated the conversation today. I wanted to chime in on a couple of things that I heard tonight. And just kind of offer some thoughts for you this evening. First and foremost, I think the conversation and the dialogue is spot on. Is the look of the downtown going to be expanded? What is the right balance between, advancing policies that might get us funding, but at the same time might create development that we might not be excited about? What is the right outreach? How much are we outreaching outside of the targeted area? Even to our newest commissioner, I thought all the questions were absolutely spot on. As I see Adam dancing on his chair, trying to get all the right answers, I become very aware of the tremendous work that is behind the scenes on even getting to this space. As Adam has gone out to secure funding so we can do this work, had he not gone out to secure those grants, there is no possible way we as a city could be moving forward this project. And there is tremendous appetite to capitalize on the success of our downtown and find a way to expand it. And I think that recognizing Adam's hard work in trying to really stretch as much as we can with a little bit of funds that we have, either within our long range planning or the grants that he got. So I want to recognize his really, really tremendous effort to get us here. And again, recognizing that it's still fluid as he's trying to figure out how to get to the finish line. So thank you, Adam. Also recognizing Jennifer for, in the background, this stuff gets lost because the community doesn't see it. But at the regional level, there are policies and regulations that trickle down to cities. And there is a lot of engagement that happens with our executive team that try to advocate on behalf of our city to make sure that the regulations are not overly burdensome for our community. And I think that some of the targets that we have to meet as part of the MTC are somewhat reasonable, and that is because of work that nobody will ever know, but it's really work that Jennifer has done behind the scenes at regional conversations, making the regional bodies aware of our limitations with transit. So as you go forward, so first of all, I want to recognize the team that they've done tremendous work to get us here. I want to recognize the Planning Commission for your very, very good dialogue. And then the last thing that I want to say is, as we go forward with this conversation, I think that you're completely on the right track. But as we go forward with who do we want to be when we grow up, as far as the greater downtown specific plan, recognizing that as much as we may want MOGO to come back, as much as we may want regional transit agencies to give us transit, that may not be in the cards for us for the next decades. So then therefore, what is the best planning we can do, recognizing that we may not have those transportation solutions? So if nobody's coming to our rescue, what does that look like on the street? If we can only plan on what we have. So when you think about bike lanes, when you think about connectivity and walkability, that is what I invite you to think about as you go forward with this effort with Adam, is think about creating solutions that are not necessarily reliant and dependent on, say, BTA or Caltrain or somebody else. The second thing that I'll invite you to think about is the state has, for, gosh, over a decade now, been clearly staggering so many housing laws that they're actually going around in circles. To one end, they were like, bring in all the density, and now new housing laws are saying, actually, we want to give developers the ability to reduce density. Bottom line is that housing seems to me is going to get built. Housing densities are going to happen. Housing without parking is going to happen. And all those things are already a fact of our reality today. And if that is our reality today, the question to us or to me, or the thing that I think about is, what is the best thing we as a city can do so that Monterey corridor can be walkable and livable with those densities and without parking? Again, if nobody else is coming to our rescue, how are we designing our sidewalks, our median, our lighting? How are we showing up to make sure that those new communities that are coming on Monterey Road, whether it's Magnolias or AMG, that those communities have a place, safe place to move around and walk? And if they're going to spill out onto the neighborhoods, how can they get to their homes safely? And what does that look like? I'm taking with me this evening some of the good dialogue that you had tonight. Things like, if it's really going to be an expanded downtown, what does that mean as it relates to tree lighting? What does it mean as it relates to events? That was not even in my, quite necessarily in the forefront of my thinking. So I appreciated kind of like that conversation as well. So with that, again, my invitation to us is to make the most out of this big effort that Adam is trying to bring forward, and to help us as a community to really be solution oriented with a real good dose of reality. And that concludes my comments that I wanted to share with you this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I was just thinking it might need to relocate that arch that's not built yet. Put it in with wing nets, so just take it like.
It would be nice to,
Let me,
I think they're gonna call it Archer now, rather than.
Okay, yeah. It'll have a heliport on top for the
Yeah.
air tax.
Parking problem solved.
Well, as I tell everyone, if you know anybody who's into building parking garages
Yeah.
and paid parking garages at that, there are likely many, many opportunities all over the Bay Area, along with housing, because the cars never gonna exist, and we have to have a place to put them. As much as folks want to build tons and tons of units without cars or without parking.
yeah, we got two big sites that there's only, at least I don't know of a lot of conversation, but when is BTA gonna think about doing something with all that parking? Right? And the other one is the Ross Shopping Center. We tried one time almost to force it, and it didn't work, right? We set the platter up and we set it up to try to do it, and they wouldn't do it because it's so fractured, I think, in ownership. But this would be a good time to try to reach out to them and see what their thinking is, more than in the next year or 2 or 4 years. Where do you want to be in 10 years? Right? And how to do that, because if we could somehow intensify that shopping center, right, with a housing component and still retain some retail, although that's low entry cost retail. I'm sure it's coming up with the success of downtown, but that's another site that's big enough that we could really do something good. I'm not quite talking for this.
okay. Well, I need to formally close public comment. So what do we need to do to accept this? Do we need to make a motion, or we accept it? Beautiful. All right,
Down it is.
Other business. Selection of planning commission chairperson and vice chair.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Has to be submitted in writing.
To who?
Yeah, of course.
Well, no,
For the next 15 minutes.
Time to go. Lights are on. So see, I was surprised to read the policy. And so the item says selection, or we're not really selecting, the policy makes the selection. So it's more like we're seating. Sorry, are we on the next item? I thought we were on. the
No,
next
we are.
item. Okay,
I'm just,
so it's more like we're just noting if we have an exception, otherwise we're seating.
Well, again,
Historically, there's been some folks who have deferred as well.
Sorry, what?
Historically, there have been, while it's not an outright selection, there have been folks who have deferred.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean, yes.
right, so that's why we gotta get Mr. Habib into the conversation.
See if he takes the job or not.
Yeah, because sometimes, with work or whatever, they gotta defer or whatever. You're muted.
So I'll give a little introduction first, before jumping into the conversation. So as the commission noted, there are city council policies that establishes how the chair and vice chair for the planning commission is selected. And one of the policies is if where there's a possibility to extend the current chair or vice chair by a 1-year extension. However, with the policies, the next up for the planning commission to be chair is Commissioner Habib, and then with the vice chair being Commissioner Lake. And so I would leave it up to the commission to discuss about the terms and who will be serve as the chair and vice chair for this upcoming year.
should we start with that's the nominations?
Yeah, so first, I guess we'll turn it over to Commissioner Habib and see if you would like to serve as chairperson or if you would like to defer.
Yeah, thank you, Adam, and thank you, Chair. So I'd be happy to serve as chair. I think just the one caveat to make clear is, as you know, there are times where I am frequently traveling, but will be making an effort to join via teleconference. And so, with that said, I'm assuming when it comes to teleconference as a chair, it's probably best to have whoever decides to accept the vice chair, that's likely yourself, Commissioner Lake, to run the meetings in those situations. But I'd be happy to, in the instances where I'm not traveling, to be able to conduct the meetings as chair.
Yes, so correct. If the chair is attending virtually, it would be the vice chair who will help run the meeting. Just due to that, any technical issues that may arise or anything like that. So the vice chair will.
Can I ask a clarifying question then?
Yes.
So, Commissioner Hayden, if you don't mind answering, if you don't answer, it's fine, but what's your prediction for the next 12 months? I mean, do you think you're going to be traveling a lot? I mean, or you just don't know? I mean, I'm just curious as to the practicality of who will need to be the chair. I mean, I would
Yeah,
love
so
to-
at this time, yeah, so at this time, it's roughly what's been the previous year. I would say there was probably around 4 meetings out of the year or so. Out of the last 12 months, maybe 4 or 5 that I was not able to, of the what's supposed to be, I think, scheduled as 24 meetings roughly. So maybe 20% or so, roughly. And I'll also reevaluate too, if I'm not able to, depending on the days I am traveling, I'd be, that's maybe a point where I can look at reconsidering if it's needed. But otherwise, I'd be happy to serve as chair.
Yep, and Commissioner Habib, I would happy to serve as your vice chair and to support you in any undisclosed or disclose locations that you may or may not be at any point in time.
So I'll make a motion to have Commissioner Habib be the next chair and Commissioner Lake to be the next vice chair for the year.
Second.
Now we need a roll call.
The roll call, please, Jenna.
Chair Wilson,
Aye.
Vice Chair Habib,
Aye.
Commissioners Lake,
Aye.
Mueller,
Aye.
Lovato,
Aye.
Young.
Aye.
And Adamo.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Congrats.
I just had one comment. I just wanted to thank Chair Wilson. You've done a phenomenal job over the past year. I know it gets sometimes the discussions can be really long, inundated, and I think you've done an excellent job of really balancing the meeting timelines, making sure we're productive online, and just running the meetings in a very well formatted fashion. So thank you so much for all the work you've done as chair.
Thank you.
I agree. I think he typified the meaning of El Jefe.
Okay, director's report.
So for director's report, we don't have much to report today. We did discuss, or there was questions right before the planning commission meeting about the news articles about Archer Aviation. Archer Aviation, coming to Morgan Hill, so they have leased out, or I understood that they signed the lease agreement with Trammell Crow for the Cochrane
Technology Park.
Tech Park. And so, so that's the news that was shared with us. And so our next planning commission meeting is in 2 weeks. We have no public hearing items that are scheduled for that day, but as of right now, we're not looking to cancel a meeting. We may have an item that comes forward.
Excuse me, Adam, one of the things that I would appreciate, and I'm sure the commissioner will agree with me, is to understand what the federal housing bill that was recently passed, what ramifications that has for us in Morgan Hill. Especially I'm interested to see how some of the stuff they did around the mobile homes. Something about permanency and taking out the whatever they use to transport the mobile home, which reduces the cost by like $10,000. So, just diving into that housing bill and how it like transports over to us in Morgan Hill would be just a suggested topic. If you're not ready to do it, that's okay. But I think that's something we can all be interested in learning about, because that was a huge bill.
I'm not ready to discuss that today.
Yeah, I know.
But yes, that's something that we can bring forward at a future meeting.
Yes.
Adam, one other question. I got asked a question about, there was an article, I think it was a social media post, if I'm correct, about the potential redevelopment of the brewery downtown into some sort of a 5-story, I don't know if it's 6-story building. Is there some truth to that? Is that something you can talk about, or?
So funny that you mentioned that, so it's not just just you hearing that, but there's, while I was doing the public outreach this past weekend on the Greater Downtown Specific Plan, I had a number of residents and community members that asked me the same thing. I'm not familiar with anything. Nothing has been brought to my attention.
Yeah, no, the planning team has not sat down with anyone at this time about that site. Interestingly, there was a next door conversation that was talking about a number of different things, and somebody said, no more 6-story buildings, talking about AMG, and then mentioned El Toro. And then suddenly it became there's a 6-story building at El Toro. So I don't know if that is what has now expanded out, or here's a different rumor, but
Yeah.
Okay. And last question, any new timeline on the famous hotel downtown? I got asked that question too. It's kind of under construction, then it's not, does it have a timeline?
They're making a documentary out of it on Netflix.
Would say
I do not know.
late 2027. What about Tractor Supply? That's important.
Yeah.
Well, we can, I think we can address the
Think
hotel
Edith
part
is-
first.
Wait, why don't you-
I'm going to walk it back. I'm gonna walk it back on the Archer Aviation. There is no comment from the city. There's no confirmation of lease yet, other than what's in the media. That is our story. We're sticking to it. Check next week. So it's just like, Adam, wait. So from, as a matter of fact, the paper was calling, trying to get a quote from this staff, and from our side, we have conveyed that, we're not ready to provide, comment or report on the Archer, aviation, project that has been now all over the media. So, you know, I will say that while we are not able to quite make a statement confirming, the fruition of that, lease, the economic development team, as you can imagine, your staff has been working and continues to work really hard alongside the planning team to advance the city's economic development blueprint. And there's a lot of work that always happens behind the scenes. And whether it is this or that other company or other future announcements that will come out, be assured that, staff is working, really hard on behalf of the city. That's Archer. On nothing to report on El Toro. There has been a lot of conversations, and the developer has been trying to figure out a project that is, that can pencil out, has gone through a number of ideations of what that could look like. And believe it or not, even just straight up housing is very expensive and difficult to advance, even if it's a 6-story housing project. So there's nothing to report on El Toro either. And the last one,
So,
on the hotel, the last, we meet with the developer, project team, their architects, their contractors, the ownership, on a monthly basis. And based on our last project check-in, there has been a shift on the project, official formal shift to 2027, with the necessary changes to the, Second Street. There's work that needs to be done, on that end. So we'll track the project our next meeting in August, but yes. I think that there is good progress that is taking place. But what we can assume is what we already knew, the project is going to be phased into a temporary certificate of occupancy as soon as the rooms and the lobby is ready, with a staggered opening of the, food venues.
Tractor Supply.
Tractor Supply is continuing to figure out, the costs of building. And they're looking at value engineering. Their original estimates for construction came in much higher than they expected. We have heard nothing about them wanting to not build. It's just a matter of finding a way to do it efficiently.
Anything else? Oh, Sprouts, what's going on with that?
Sprouts, that shopping center, has been approved.
Beautiful.
I don't believe they've filed for their, building permit yet. We're continuing to work with them. They will have a sign program that will be coming to the commission at a future date. A freeway sign will be part of that project. But yeah, they're continuing to move forward.
Jennifer, where will this be located?
That's at the corner of Coffin and DePaul, right off the freeway.
Any other comments?
What about the Berliner Schnitzel?
Mm-hmm.
I'm kidding, I'm kidding.
Oh.
When I got on the planning commission, my brother's like, you gotta get us a Berliner Schnitzel.
I like Berliner.
How about the LAFCO application? I know there's an EIR draft out or something.
Yes, so the EIR for the annexations and urban service area amendment for Rose Orchard Court, the Butterfield Park expansion, and the Condit Sports Facilities expansion has been released. It was released on June 5th, 2026. The comment period ends on July 20th, 2026. So yeah, so the EIR, all the documents are available on our website. Just type in annexations, it will come up that way for anyone that's interested.
When
Okay.
when is it gonna come? The planning commission?
Good, great question.
Yeah, there's still a process to go through. Right now, so right now it's the public responses on the draft EIR. So with it still being a week out, it's hard to evaluate right now. But once we close that period, we'll have a better sense on the number of comments that we've received and how long it may take to respond to those, as well as prepare the final EIR and mapping out our road forward on when that may come to the planning commission.
And depending on the comments received, we may need to recirculate. So it will be, yeah, we'll have to see what we actually get.
How about, is it World Oil or World Gas that stations had to fence up for a long time and not a lot happening?
They had a very long go through the Department of Toxics and everybody that needs to be involved in their
Well, building up the. Extracting the tanks?
yeah, the tank replacement, excuse me. They're still moving forward through their required reviews. And there was a recent update that they were gonna,
Yeah, I know there was a slight update, I think like their fences fell or something that was issued to clean up the site.
right,
So code compliance has been out to the site to take a look and verify, but besides that, I don't know any other updates.
and it's a similar situation for the old Valero that's turned into a Chevron right in Monterey. They had to move very fast on getting the tanks out of the ground because of the change in the type of tank they would be required to have if they waited past January 1st. So they moved really quick, but then everything kind of stalled.
You mentioned Butterfield Park, and which park is that?
That's the one on Butterfield.
I mean, the one you just built, and we just.
Yeah.
Butterfield and Monterey. That's currently under construction, so we're looking to expand that part to the south.
Oh, for the expansion of the park.
Yeah, so
I was gonna say, it's already built. Why we starting?
Created is within the city, and then there's a space between that area and the mobile home park that's in the county.
Yeah.
And that's the part that they'd like to bring into the.
Jeremy.
Thank you.
That was